Hi, I'm Angus Cress Gillespie, and this is another segment of Old Ways in New Jersey. You know, New Jersey is often associated with superhighways, toll roads, industrialization, pollution. But once you get off the main highways, you come to small towns like Milltown, New Jersey. And we're here today on South Main Street in Milltown at the oldest continuous business in Milltown. It's the Schwendeman Taxidermy Studio, and we're very fortunate today. We're invited to take a tour of the studio with Bruce Schwendeman, who's the third generation taxidermist in this family. And we were lucky enough to be introduced to Bruce by Melissa Milgram, who's just written a new book called Still Life, which is all about the misunderstood craft of taxidermy. One of the best places to see terrific taxidermy dioramas is not too far from here, about 35 miles north in New York City, at the American Museum of Natural History. Interestingly enough, the Schwendeman family, all three generations, Arthur starting in 1921, and then David, and now Bruce, have contributed enormously to the natural history exhibits at the American Museum of Natural History. And we're lucky enough to have this invitation to visit the shop today. So come with me, won't you? And we'll go in and take a look around. Now we're in the back room of Schwendeman's studio, and I'm here with the third generation taxidermist, Bruce Schwendeman, and the author of the recent book, Still Life, Melissa Milgram. And Bruce, I understand you've just received a package from Jenkinson's Aquarium down in Point Pleasant in South Jersey, and this is going to be a surprise for all of us.
All of us, yes.
Including our viewers. None of us have seen this before. Let's open the package and see what we got.
Okay. It's always a surprise. Usually things aren't packed and wrapped like this, but or they say what they're bringing ahead of time. I know this is supposed to be a shark, but we don't know what kind and or what condition it's in.
So it's not just old stuff, it's fresh specimens.
This is a fresh specimen, apparently. And one of the things, whenever you have anything that dies or passes away or is found, freeze it and then call us. Always freeze it first. There is a little peculiar odor to our freezer. It's a walk-in box that's got things going back to 1958. And just things we collected ourselves or haven't gotten around to. But it does have a peculiar odor because it's not a food freezer, it's a specimen freezer. And there's about 20 skunks buried in there somewhere too. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay. Oh. Nice little shark here. Wow, bigger than it looks.
Was that caught in South Jersey?
Wow, looks like I'd say it's a tiger shark. No, South Jersey. Yeah, it was caught in South Jersey in an aquarium tank.
Oh.
No, I don't know where they get their specimens from, Angus, but it could be from anywhere in the world, actually. But
did it die of natural causes down
oh
there?
yeah, they would. Nothing is ever euthanized. If it dies of natural causes, one of the things about taxidermy is we try to salvage parts, if or mounts, use them if we can. It's the ultimate in conservation, the wise use of our natural resources.
Well, for a rare or endangered species, it would be wasteful to just throw it away.
Oh yeah, sure. But it happens in zoos all the time, and sometimes the zoo people they do autopsies, because they have to find out cause of death, and they do it so haphazardly that they damage the specimen, and there's so many ways they could do it carefully and so everybody can use the parts they need.
And it's interesting too because captivity alters the way animals look. Like when we're at a zoo, we're not seeing what an animal would look like in its natural habitat.
So this appears to be what I think is a tiger shark. We would get the field guides out, and identify the species properly, and/or Jenkinson's would know. It might be on the list. We'd measure the fish, and it is a cartilaginous fish, and then we'd note the length. And from the length, we can get an estimate of a full mount, or whether they want this just the skin tanned. Maybe they want the skeleton articulated, and we'll give them a list of options, and then they have to make a decision from there. But right now, we'll rewrap it and put it back in the freezer
And Bruce,
until
would you
they
use the actual
decide.
skin for
You
this?
can on a small shark, and even big sharks, but it's a lot of work. So the bigger sharks are usually done as cast replicas with the real jaws intact. So okay.
One of the most popular subjects for American hunters, outdoorsmen, and taxidermists is the American turkey. It's a perennial favorite. And I believe we have Bruce Schwindeman's very first successful hunt, a head-mounted turkey. Perhaps, Bruce, you tell us a little bit about this particular mount.
Yes, I was very, very proud to get this bird. It's a Jake. You can tell by the shape of the tail, and it was my first one. Turkeys were hunted almost to extinction in the East. Pennsylvania, you can find them in some places, but through a restoration project by departments of Fish and Game in all the eastern states and the western states, they repopulated, and now they're even in Milltown and East Brunswick, all over the place. And it's a very popular game bird. And I was lucky to get this in the 1980s sometime, and it's my first bird. And this trophy cost about half what it would cost to have the full bird mounted, and you can hang it on a wall in any room that's appropriate. With a table mount, you have to have a special place for them. But
Well, one thing that I find fascinating about taxidermy is that we were just looking at a shark, and the skin is so completely different than a turkey, which has feathers. And it just reminds me of like all the, how much you have to know anatomy and the different skills involved in taxidermy.
you're right, Melissa.
I know a little bit about this topic.
You do. You know a lot. It is. Birds are different than mammals, and then they're different than fish. Reptiles. They're all unique, and it's like being a veterinarian and a mortician for the animal world, and an artist all combined.
Bruce, let's move on and take a look at the feeding female turkey.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good story, Angus.
Our next turkey is a feeding female turkey, and you'll notice this one is the whole mount, not just the head mount. Bruce, tell us a little bit about this one.
This one, Angus, we're very proud to have this, and it will never be sold. This is a female feeding turkey mounted by my grandfather, founder of the shop, A.J. Schwindeman I, Arthur J.
Founded in 1921.
1920. Well, that's when he mounted his first deer head. He was actually doing work in 1919. He had his first business card made.
Okay.
But we say established in 21 because then he knew he wanted to do it full time. Anyway, feeding turkey. This is kind of a scientific pose, and I loved it when I saw it, and then I saw a self-portrait of Charles Wilson Peale, one of Melissa's cast of characters in the book Still Life. It's great. She's got everybody in there. I got chills.
Well, Peale was the person who started the first natural history museum in the country in Philadelphia, and it's now the Philosophical Society, and you could stop by and check it out. But
yeah. Well, he just happened to paint pictures of George Washington and other greats of the time to raise money to do taxidermy for his museum.
Okay, Bruce, let's move on and take a look at the strutting male.
Okay.
Okay, we're looking here at a strutting male turkey, and one of the things I love about coming to this shop is that there are so many animals here and such a variety that you could come here for 15 years and see something new. And we're looking at condors and buffalo heads and so many amazing mounts. And Bruce, why don't you tell us about this one?
Okay, Melissa. This is a strutting turkey, popular among turkey hunters, and it's the full-blown thing. We actually can rent this guy out for Thanksgiving Day every so often. So we do rent some animals, but this is what the male does to get a female to go out on a date with him. And it's another behavioral pose, much like the feeding hen.
Is there a word for that? not preening.
Strutting.
Strutting.
This is a guy. This
Strutting.
guy's
Oh,
in full strut. You know, they drag their wings and then they gobble a little bit and then they puff up and then they dance around. And actually, Ben Franklin wanted this as the national bird. Which look at the head. It's red, white, and blue. And when he's strutting, it goes from solid red to solid white to solid blue and flows back and forth. You watch it, you can see it happen. That's an American bird.
It's a little bit like you or me sucking in the stomach and thrusting out the chest.
That's
Yeah.
it. Kind of strutting around. That's it, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, turn the bird? Ah, yeah. There you go. And you could have the head turned left, head turned right, or straight. You could have a half strut, a full strut.
Look at his waddle.
And the waddle. And the beard length is what the girls look at, too.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
say he's got a good beard. The longer beard, the better. He gets more
This
girlfriends.
is a very attractive strutting male.
Okay, now look, we've seen a fish and we've seen a bird. Let's take a look at a mammal. Maybe you have a squirrel or two around here.
Oh, yeah. We got a squirrel. Yeah.
One of the interesting things in Melissa Milgram's book is that she describes the process of mounting a squirrel herself because she felt like she couldn't really speak authoritatively about taxidermy unless she tried herself. So, Melissa, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the process.
Well, first of all, I'll never use the word stuffed again. This is not stuffing. This is mounting because it starts out looking something like this. I mean, a little fresher, like that shark you saw. But how do you turn this into this? And this is a nice, plump, beautiful squirrel. And it's a very complicated process. And what I did when I mounted my squirrel for my book was I did the soft body technique, which is where you wind a form in Excelsior and tow. And that's the same method they used in the Victorian era, and it's still a good method, and they use it here at the shop. Of course, you can buy a prefab form called a mannequin, and you can customize it, but it's a little easier than making the form by yourself.
Yeah, this one gives you all variations of poses and things. These are kind of hard to modify, and I call them like kits, you know.
Right.
But and most people, a lot of people can do those, but these take much more talent.
Oh yes, and perseverance.
Part of the definition of taxidermy is the illusion of life, and to achieve that, you look into the eyes of a mounted animal, and if it looks alive or real, that means it's a good job. So eyes are critical, like in this squirrel and.
And also, well, the eyes are quite beautiful and intricate, and they don't just vary from species to species, but also within that species. If you want to portray an animal at night, you would have a glass eye with a slit, with a big pupil, and if you want to portray an animal in the daytime, it has to have a slit pupil. But that's the level of detail a museum taxidermist will go to create that illusion.
And color variations and everything is critical. We have cabinets of hundreds of eyes to select from.
Because if one thing's wrong, our eyes can detect the tiniest flaw, and you don't have to know anything about that species to know when it's wrong. This is a nice squirrel, but the squirrel I did had some major flaws because I don't know the species as well as Bruce does, but it was still a real great learning experience. And another thing we might want to look at, Angus, is the tools. A taxidermist's tools are really interesting and scary and creepy and fun. Especially this one here. What's this?
You tell me, you used it.
This is a brain spoon. Pretty gross. What do we have here? Oh, just tweezers, but are they
Tweezers.
special? They look.
Yeah, they're.
I mean, I
they're
wouldn't use these on my eyebrows.
my sister and I, we fight over the good tweezers. You know, tweezers vary all over the map. This one here is from an antler for a lip tucking
Oh,
deer.
yeah, lip tucking.
A lip tucker for deer.
And then we have all kinds of. I mean, there's a tail splitter. Do you have a tail splitter in
Tail
there? Which you
splitters.
would definitely use on a squirrel.
Yeah, that was actually made by an umbrella stave. You know, it's got that V-shape thing, and then we put a handle on it. So then you slide it into the tail, then slide the knife down the groove.
And the Schwedemans
Perfect.
make their own tools,
They're all
and they pass
made.
them down from generation to generation because back in the day, you couldn't just go to a store and buy a tail splitter.
Or a brain spoon. Anyway, oh, here's my favorite knife. This is my bird skinning knife my father made with a rosewood handle and brass clasp, and he initialed it to me.
But a taxidermist's tools are very important.
Yeah.
And
And that was a hacksaw blade sharpened, the very strong steel.
And here's an interesting part. Oh, it's an artificial tongue and jaw of what animal?
Well, that's a mammal. That's a fox.
A fox.
Yeah, and it's to show we have to replace the natural teeth. Years ago, they used the real teeth, but teeth tend to crack over time. So now most mammals with open mouths are showing the teeth. They use artificial teeth. And we have catalogs, much like telephone books. And they're full of all assortments of jaws for carnivorous animals and others. And so we can buy a lot of those supplies through catalogs and suppliers.
But the real stalwart taxidermists and the ones that made the dioramas in the 1920s at the American Museum of Natural History and the Denver Museum, the other museums, they couldn't go to a catalog and buy the supplies. They really had to know that animal, craft everything by hand.
Yeah, even
And you
making
still have to
artificial
do it
teeth.
today because
Well,
certain species
Yeah,
you just can't buy online, right?
right, yeah.
Well, this has all been very interesting, the authentic reproduction of the illusion of life. But one of the things that really intrigues me about taxidermy is the creation of a totally fake animal, sort of rogue taxidermy. And one of the tests of a good taxidermist is the ability to create a jackalope. And so, Bruce, I'd love for you to show us a jackalope.
Okay.
Wait, you have two varieties, right?
Yeah, we have two, yeah.
This is an aspect of taxidermy. It's called novelty taxidermy. And here to tell us a little bit more about it is Melissa.
Well, I've never seen this creature out in the woods before, and you won't unless you're in Wyoming, of course, where it was invented in 1932. Two taxidermist brothers, well, one of the brothers tossed a jackrabbit skin and it landed under the antlers of a deer and spawned the tackiest icon in the American West, the jackalope.
Jackalope, nice.
And
Well, what I say in your book, something about every taxidermy studio it has to have a jackalope in it, you know, to be. But
most taxidermy studios have at least one. Some taxidermists are embarrassed by novelty mounts.
No, we actually have two jackalopes here. Bruce, tell us about the other one.
well, not to be outdone, my grandfather was a traveler to the Old West with friends, and he says we need an eastern species. And he said jackalope, that means antelope horns, and owl eyes, and fox teeth. And this is one my grandfather, Arthur, mounted soon after he saw this one of these jackalopes. And we like to tell the story that was they live in underground caverns at the Tamarack Golf Course. And they used to come out and nibble at the workers' ankles when they were having lunch on the logs near the openings to the caverns.
Bruce, what caused those caverns at the Tamarack Golf Course?
Someone a long time ago, no names mentioned, started a little fire. And they smoldered for days. East Brunswick people that lived here for a long time will remember. The turnpike was actually closed for days. And I think it was a friend of mine, but I'm not sure. And I'm not going to say.
And the fires created the caves.
The underground caverns is like peat, burning,
Uh-huh.
smoldering for days and days and days.
And then the eastern jackalopes inhabited the caves.
They came from in the caves.
But they
I don't know
tormented
where
the
they came
workers.
from. And they used to nibble at their ankles to get scraps of food from their lunches. And they would also sing at night when there's a full moon. You know, that's how they attracted their mates.
And so they have the horns of an antelope, the bite of a fox, and the skull of a rabbit?
Well, skull of a rabbit, the fur and skull, but also the eyes of an owl to see at night.
Oh, okay.
You never know when they're going to come out. Day, night,
So
they're
it's
everything.
part owl, part fox, part rabbit, and part antelope.
Yes.
And
Wow.
part New Jersey.
Yeah.
In part New Jersey.
Okay. Now, you know, we've looked at the shark, but I'm really not completely satisfied that we've exhausted the fish world. Let's take a look at the barracuda.
Okay.
The first time I ever came through the Swenderman studio, one of the things that really caught my eye was the barracuda, and I felt sure there must be a story behind it. So I'm gonna have to ask Bruce, what's the story? How'd you get this, and what's it mean?
I guess you know by now everything here has a story, right,
Yeah.
Melissa?
Oh, yeah.
You point to any animal, and if I don't know the truth, I'll make something up. But no, this was a gift from a friend to my grandfather from Florida. He brought it back. There was no overnight shipping back then. They had to truck it back in ice, when they came back from Florida. And he gave it to my grandfather, and he said, I bet you never mounted a Barracuda before. And he said, my grandfather, I'll give it a try. And this is the result, and it's one of our prized specimens that hangs in the front, where visitors over the years say, those are heirlooms, don't get rid of those, you'll change the look of the shop. But this is a real skin mount of a Barracuda, and in it are the real teeth. And I like to tell fishermen, or even the hunters, do you think I should get this thing mounted? I said, well, a picture may be worth 1,000 words, but a well-mounted trophy is worth a story. And this has a story like every other piece of taxidermy.
Bruce, it's my understanding that in recent years, for fishermen especially, that they don't even bother to do a skin mount, that they just get sort of an off-the-shelf plastic replica.
I'm searching for one right now for a friend. He caught it and he regrets never having it mounted, but he wants to recreate that story for display in his living room, and we have to find an artificial replica. These are models that look very lifelike now, and they're totally nothing real. Any part of a fish is real. It's totally a recreation, and
I imagine they're less expensive.
no, they're about the same price. We
Really?
charge the same price.
Really?
Yeah, because with the skin mounts, you have a pattern to go by for restoring the colors. With a replica, you don't. So there's a lot more labor into the preparation for painting and then the painting itself.
The replica, you just get the plastic shell, so to speak. You have to do the painting yourself?
Yes. Well, you can get them. You can buy them painted. No, you can buy them painted by an artist. And again, just like taxidermy is an art, and a fish taxidermist, there's friends of mine, the world famous taxidermists, you pay a premium for their work, and then you can get John Doe down the street to do one for you at a much lower fee.
And Bruce, museums no longer use the actual skin of most fish, right, these days?
Right.
What do
right.
they use now?
They do artificial replicas.
Okay.
My father cast a lot of the fish for the new Hall of Ocean Life. The mounts, this one here has held up amazingly well. Certain fish are hardier than others, but there can be grease leakage in certain areas and cracks in the skin over time. The fins are more brittle. When you do a replica, I'm putting it down because it's heavy. This is, I think, a solid mount. So the museums can't afford to repair everything all the time, so they want it done right and permanent from the get-go. But the accuracy of the colors is right on.
Well, this has really been interesting, Bruce. We've seen fish, we've seen bird, we've seen a mammal. We've just about exhausted the categories, but there's a lot more to be seen in the shop. Maybe we should look around and take a walk through the shop.
Very good. That's my favorite thing to do, give people a tour.
Okay, Bruce, we're here in the front room. This is the room that opens off of South Main Street. You have stuff in the windows, and now we're here. Point out some of the best things here in the front
Well,
room.
I like we have the buffalo head is number one. The American bison, people like to see it, and they say, "Oh, what a big creature," and it is. It's very impressive, very Americana. We also have to have a few deer heads. A couple African antelope that we've done just to show people our work. Of course, we also have the jackalopes there and a great doll sheep over the cash register. We don't know if it protects it from burglars, but it's all these eyes watching you, and people give a second thought about doing anything like that.
You also sell a few books.
We have books. Books are my passion, and I do sell an assortment of natural history books, and I'm going to be weeding out my collection and sell more. But we also have unique gifts, things that my father made, and local people, and they want to try and get exposure, and we sell them in the gift shop. Milltown memorabilia, that's a big seller.
Do you have any, Potter-type Anthropomorphic?
Yes, we also have again, we're back to novelty taxidermy. the frog fishing with the cigar out of his
Yeah,
mouth.
I really like that. Yeah.
And then there's one sitting on a mushroom playing a banjo.
Yeah, it's cute. Yeah.
And,
These are animals doing human-like activities.
yeah, a little anthropomorphic display.
Another thing that's always intrigued me is the Archaeopteryx, the kind of, it's a bird that resembles a reptile, and it's sort of the missing link because evolution teaches us that reptiles evolved into birds, and this kind of is a transition figure.
Well, Angus, I'm going to have to send you back to school.
Okay.
You know, dinosaurs, birds are the living relatives of dinosaurs, not reptiles.
Oh.
Reptiles are its own little branch on the
Okay.
evolutionary tree. Okay,
I should have studied
dinosaurs
biology
live
more
in-
carefully.
There you
Yeah.
go. But Archaeopteryx is that link. Based on the fossil record, we can see where there was feathers and scales and teeth and claws. So then what we did, we imagined the colors and then recreate that bird. And we had lucky to have one an example here that was actually done in Roland Ward's natural history establishment in London, England, in about the 30s, probably before World War II.
And moving along in this next room, this is your office. Can you comment on your record keeping and your tidiness in your office here?
I used to be I am a great record keeper, but my filing technique is a little askew.
Tell us a little bit about the workshop area.
Well, actually, the whole building was built in 1936 during the middle of the Great Depression. Then the second floor was added for an apartment for my grandparents, so they actually lived above the shop. And then they did the work in 2 small rooms. And then in the early 60s, the back big workshop was done when they made friends and started to do great larger animals. Like North American big game hunters would bring in bears and sailfish and marlin and muskox. And
So here in
So
the
we needed a
workroom,
big
I
one.
see you have a buffalo head.
yeah, buffalo head and
You have condors.
condors. We're doing work for the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Racks of deer antlers. That's work in progress that has to be done. Sometimes it takes 8 to 10 months, 12 months to do a specimen. So we have overlaps from year to year.
Tell us about the house.
Oh man, that's a neat story. That's the family homestead, purchased by Gideus and Christina Schwendeman in 1859. I don't know. It wasn't much. It was about that size, you know, a few additions here and there over the years, but it's the family homestead, and this is where everybody gathers for Thanksgiving and Easter and the major holidays and major family events.
And is it true your father was actually born in the house?
Yeah, his older brother and sister were born in a hospital, and he in 1924 came too quick, and he's born in that house. He lived there, served World War II for 4 years, and then when he came back, the apartment was ready for my grandparents above the shop, and they said, well, you're going to raise a family, you stay in the house, and we'll go to the apartment. And he's been there for 85 years.
And I see you have a sign up in the shop that says prevent elder abuse. So I assume you've stopped beating your father.
Where is that? I think he put that up.
Well, thanks so much for the tour. It's been great looking around.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for coming.